Chapter 104. The former. Full Zicheng and Wei Ran to return to the villa, and Xiao Bai moved towards Wei Ran and surrounded him. She couldn't laugh or cry. Xiao Bai, what are you doing? Chen Wei also came out from inside. Mu Zicheng stopped walking. What's the matter? Isn't Su Yi trying to sell the astronomical detectors in the past few days? Today he said that there will be an aurora tonight 1,000 kilometers north from here, and everyone is talking about whether to go or not. Look. Wei Ran's eyes lit up, and she said excitedly, Aurora, is it the legendary green light? Chen Wei nodded, yes, that's the kind. Many people have been waiting for this kind of aurora for many years, never seen one, very rare. She immediately hugged Mu Zicheng's arm, and looked at Mu Zicheng with an expectant little face. A look like I'm going. The corner of Mu Zicheng's mouth turned up, want to go. Wei Ran nodded heavily. How could he refuse her, and pinched her face. Then go. Wei Ran jumped up and ran into the villa. Sakura. We are almost ready to go. More than 1,000 kilometers, of course it is impossible to drive. There is a convenient function of teleportation, how could it not be used? So Mu Zicheng and his party arrived at a vast and boundless open space thousands of miles away, in the blink of an eye. Su Yi checked it again with the astronomical monitor to make sure that this was the place where the aurora would appear. They set up the tent by hand, and set up a fire pile in front of the tent to store picnic equipment. Wei Ran asked Mu Zicheng to build a tent for Xiao Bai so that he could sleep well at night. She looked around, and there was almost no sign of anyone coming here, and even Xiao Bai didn't smell the slightest smell about the alien. There is a small river next to it, which seems to be very shallow, but Wei Ran took a small wooden stick with a speed of 2 meters to test it. Oh, this small river is so deep, this wooden stick is about to be submerged. Jiang Nanfeng walked over to have a look, and suddenly thought, Xiao Ran, quickly get out the fishing rod, I'll go fishing. Wei Ran was surprised, did you buy a fishing rod back then? Actually, Wei Ran has never counted what supplies are in the storage space, so she doesn't know, but let the space be automatically classified in it. Because the materials inside are too huge and boundless. That's the entire net worth of Mr. Mu. Moreover, the post-apocalyptic water and all creatures in the water can no longer be eaten. How did she know that there were such things as fishing rods in the space? Chen Wei complained on the other side, this guy insists on me buying it, saying that someone said that it will never be used in the last days, and that he is prepared for any danger, so he bought a fishing rod from the sea. Wei Ran thought about the fishing rod in his heart, and then held a black gold sea fishing rod appeared inside. Su Yi and Yan Yan asked for fishing rods when they saw them. She simply gave each person 1 rod to make everyone enjoy themselves. Hey, how did you do this? Wei Ran took the fishing rod to study, lowered her head and pulled the thick thread and muttered to herself. Suddenly a big hand with clear, slender and clean fingers went into his eyes and took the fishing rod away. She watched Mu Zicheng wind up the fishing line in 2 or 3 familiar strokes and then took Wei Ran to sit by the river. Mu Zicheng surrounded her, and Wei Ran leaned back comfortably on Mu Zicheng's hard and warm chest. She watched as Mu Zicheng put bait on the hook, then threw it out and fell into the water. Ripples rippled on the river surface, and the action was done in one go. Brother, have you ever fished before? Mu Zicheng fixed the fishing rod aside. Well, I used to go fishing in the deep sea with Nanfeng and the others. Wei Ran's eyes lit up again when he heard the deep sea, but soon went out again. Heng Mu pouted, I didn't even go to the deep sea. Wei Ran likes the sea, but she only goes to the beach for a walk, at most she swims in the shallow sea. There is sea in Yahi Island, but now she can no longer go into the sea. Mu Zicheng looked at her resentful look, and laughed a few times in a deep and helpless manner. Wei Ran could still feel Mu Zicheng's slight vibration while leaning in his arms. My little ancestor, is that why I don't want to take you there? Think about how much you avoided me at that time. Every time I wanted to tie you to the boat. Wei Ran remembered at this moment there was a time when Mu Zicheng said that he would take her to play, At that time he was nervous about his studies and it was rare to have a vacation, but he avoided Zicheng and went to the tutor. Now thinking of my own stupidity at that time, I couldn't help giggling. Then you don't have to think about tying me to the boat now, because I will be so clingy to you that you won't get rid of it even if you shake it off. Zicheng smiled. My mind moved. I lowered my head and whispered into Wei Ran's ear, no, I still want to tie you up, but not on the boat, but on the bed. Wei Ran's fair face blushed suddenly, turned slightly and raised her head. Stretching out his hand to cover Zicheng's thin and cool lips, he said angrily, brother. It's broad daylight, no one is serious. Zicheng's eyes were soft, and the tip of his tongue swept her palm. Wei Ran quickly took it back, then he lowered his head to kiss her lips. Of course Wei Ran didn't forget that Yan Yang and the others were around, and she dodged his kiss. Zicheng looked at her calmly. Wei Ran was numb from his sight, and muttered, they're still here. Zicheng hugged her slender waist violently, with a vicious expression on his face. I'll settle the score with you tonight. That energy was terrifying. Incredible. Wei Ran didn't dare to speak for a moment and stayed quietly in his arms. At this time Jiang Yanfeng, over there, made a movement. I got the bait, it looks like it's a big guy. Gu Ming didn't fish, and stayed by Jiang Nanfeng's side all the time. At this time, under Jiang Nanfeng's instruction, he took a big fishing net and waited beside him to catch fish. Chen Wei and Jiang Yi also surrounded him to see what he caught. Nanfeng, use the momentum you used to catch sharks in the deep sea to pull it up. Conventional operations didn't work, so Gu Ming pulled it to the surface of the water after a hard pull. Ha 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 ha. Ho 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 ho, even Xiao Bai couldn't stop laughing. What kind of fish was that? It was a big wooden jar that floated down from nowhere. Master, I'm sweating all over, and this thing came out. Even Gu Ming rarely smiled. It was like this all afternoon. In the end, the fish caught were not edible, so they were released. Time to make dinner. Although he couldn't eat the fish in the river, Wei Ran took out 2 large and lively trout and regarded them as fish caught from the river today. Chen Wei took the big trout and looked at it. Xiao Ran's 2 fish are better than today's countless fish. This statement was unanimously recognized by everyone. Wei Ran insisted, that's it. Zicheng's eyes were doting. The corners of his mouth slightly curled up, and he reached out to caress her heart. At night, the fire was raised to warm the coolness of late autumn. Everyone was around the fire, making a lot of noise. Chapter 105. Under the Romance of the Aurora. Because the aurora does not know when it will come out, everyone stays in groups, so that the rest of the people can rest and will not miss the aurora. Zicheng and Wei Ran were the first to be on duty some distance away from the camp. They sat under the romantic Milky Way full of stars. Tired and crooked. Suddenly, a shooting star pierced the sky of the night and disappeared in a flash. Meteor. Wei Ran sat up straight instantly, clasped her hands together, and silently made a wish. Zicheng lowered his eyes and whispered to her, what did you promise? She smiled sweetly. Then he leaned his head on Zicheng's strong shoulder. You can't say your wish, it won't work if you say it, and you are not allowed to probe my mind. Zicheng smiled lightly, raised his hand to gently stroke the broken hair on Wei Ran's cheek. Okay, don't probe. Actually, Zicheng hardly used his consciousness to explore Wei Ran's heart. Only that time when Wei Ran first arrived at the snow mountain base, he was so painful that he had nightmares every night. Brother, this starry sky is so beautiful. It's very rare to be able to see the starry night sky now. He bowed his head and kissed her forehead. His eyes were extremely gentle, but in my eyes, nothing can compare to my Ran is pretty. Zicheng could spoil Wei Ran to the heavens and earth, but he seldom talked about love. So as long as he talks about love, how can Wei Ran bear it? His heart and eyes are shining, and there is only room for Zicheng in those eyes. She rested her chin on his shoulder, Her delicate little face was a bit shy. With a snigger at the corner of her mouth, Mei Xing raised her head and looked at him. Brother. Mu Zicheng stared sideways with downcast eyes. Wei Ran slowly approached Mu Zicheng's ear, kissed and sucked it, and then blew in gently, almost provocatively, "Didn't you say ... you're going to teach me a lesson?" Mu Zicheng's dark eyes were full of tears. Fierce flames sprang out, staring at Wei Ran closely but did not move. When she was still wondering why Mu Zicheng was different from the past, she was hugged violently by Mu Zicheng. Before he had time to exclaim, he found himself taken to the small jungle next to the camp. Here. The sound of clothes being torn. Brother. The lips were blocked, and only the final sound remained. When Mu Zicheng tore it apart, Wei Ran's curvaceous body was revealed in his eyes. Fascinated him even more. Begging for mercy. Intermittently. But Mu Zicheng lowered his broad and strong back. There are many love words. But they are all dirty flirting words. And under Mu Zicheng's shield, no one can peek into the slightest bit of it. Just then, a green light illuminated the night. At the same time, it also showed Wei Ran's fair and charming body. These days have been peaceful. Wei Ran also took advantage of this time to gradually expand the scope of the base to clear the polluted land. But the land is a whole piece, and even a little bit of pollution cannot be planted, therefore it is necessary to restore all the land in the southern border to its original state. Today she was cleaning up the pollution in the research area, and when it was about to end, she saw Gu Ming also coming, saying that she wanted the Weapon Research Institute to take a look at the weapons at the southern border base. She thought for a while because she was curious about the arsenal in the southern border, but she followed along. Because Gu Wing himself is very familiar with all kinds of weapons and is even more proficient in installation and operation, Mu Zicheng asked him to go to the Weapon Research Institute to help Lin Ningxia establish the automatic weapon defense line and counterattack of the super smart laboratory as soon as possible. The weapon research building is on the other side of the research area, and it is heavily guarded. Everyone knows that this is where weapons are researched, but any weapons inside are top secret. The superintelligence laboratory is only known to the core team. After entering the weapons building, go up to the office on the third floor. Seeing Gu Ming coming, Li Ningxia walked over. "Gu Ming, who is this?" She had never met Wei Ran before, and after coming to the southern border, she was focused on researching weapons, so she didn't know anything about the outside world. Gu Ming simply skipped over my own. Wei Ran greeted Lin Ningxia with a smile. "Hi, my name is Wei Ran." "Oh. Hello, Li Ningxia." Li Ningxia is not sociable, it is also a simple self-introduction. "Brother Gu Ming, you are so punctual today." Wei Ran followed the voice, and there was a petite and cute girl behind Li Ningxia, with an expression of admiration for Gu Ming. She gloated and chuckled inwardly, although Gu Ming still looked indifferent. Jiang Nanfeng's idiot must be nervous now. Li Ningxia saw the meaning behind Wei Ran's eyes, thought she was someone from Gu Ming, and was afraid that she might misunderstand, so she introduced the girl. "This is Qian Qian, who has not been here for a long time." Wei Ran knew Li Ningxia misunderstood, but she didn't explain, just nodded with a smile. Qian went on to say, "Brother Gu Ming, I have prepared scented tea for you. This is my treasure, and I am usually reluctant to drink it." As he said that, he was about to come over and hand it to Gu Ming, but Wei Ran knew Gu Ming's character well, and the girl would definitely not be able to get off the stage later. She blocked it with her hand and said with a smile, "If you want it, you want it, but there's no need, we'll prepare it ourselves." Then she took out a cup from her equipment bag. At this time, Chen Wei usually brews the tea with the energy recovery water and then divides it up so that when it is necessary to drink it, there will be no suspicion. Beep beep ... the device sounds. Li Ningxia and Gu Ming walked over to see if there was anything unusual. Wei Ran also followed and casually put the cup on the table next to her. But after some inspection, it was fine. Li Ningxia turned to Gu Ming, "Come and sit in my office. There are some things I want to advise. Gu Ming picked up the water glass that Wei Ran had just put aside, took a sip, and nodded. Then Lai Ningxia said to Mu Qianqian, you pay attention to the data here, and write down any abnormalities. There is nothing important. Don't bother us. Mu Qianqian responded obediently, okay, Professor Li. Wei Ran also I thought Gu Ming and Lai Ningxia were going to the office. But they went up to the 4th floor and walked through a long corridor, stopping at a seemingly simple door. Then Lai Ningxia approached and knocked on the door a few times. A virtual screen appeared in the air. Lai Ningxia moved closer and stared at the virtual screen, and the virtual screen scanned her eye masks. Then a mechanical female voice sounded. Pass. This is the super intelligent laboratory that Lanchi found before, and Lai Ningxia has let it build up defenses against the Weapons Research Institute. Gu Ming passed in the same way. When we arrived at Wei Ran, Li Ningxia just wanted to set it up to let her pass, but Gu Ming stopped him. No, Xiao Ran can pass. The Colonel has already set it up for us before, in order to facilitate our access to any place in the base. Chapter 106. Gu Ming changed his mind? Li Ningxia was surprised. If it was just Gu Ming's people, they wouldn't even record the eye masks of the secret personnel in the base. Wait until Wei Ran finishes scanning. Suddenly, the seemingly vulnerable door opened slowly. Only then did I see that this door is not simple, only the outer layer looks simple, but the back is made of rare metal. It is not an exaggeration to say that it is an iron wall. It's similar to the hollow black iron gate of Yehi Island. After entering, there is another long corridor. After passing through 2 such doors, an elevator that seems to be industrial appears. Wei Ran was surprised. She didn't understand until she entered the floor key inside the elevator. The Weapon Research Institute and the Weapon Depot are underground. Li Ningxia nodded. In order to better hide the weapons, dozens of floors were hollowed out in the southern border, and Li Ningxia simply moved the superintelligence laboratory here. Even if the entire area is bombed, the bottom will still be intact. At this moment, the elevator stopped. Wei Ran was surprised when the elevator door opened. This is exactly like the blockbuster movies I watched before. Inside are the most advanced research equipment. There is also a large virtual screen in the middle showing various data values, and a progress bar at the bottom, which has progressed to 85%. Li Ningxia brought all the team members here to monitor the research data, and these people were also allowed by Mu Zicheng. Wei Ran looked at the progress bar and asked, is that showing Ellie's coverage rate in the southern base? Li Ningxia was stunned. Yes, how do you know it's called AI Lai? Wei Ran pursed her lips and smiled. When I saw it for the first time, it said it by itself. At that time it was not as powerful as it is now, and it can keep people out of the door. At that time I just developed it and there were some accidents and other team members couldn't operate it. Wei Ran understood. No wonder she felt that the superintelligence laboratory should not be so easy to enter. This Lai Ningxia is really powerful. Fortunately, she is at the base in the southern border, otherwise it would be a bit more dangerous to the southern border. For the next few days, although Gu Ming ran to the weapon store as before, he often came back in the middle of the night. Even Jiang Nanfeng seldom saw him, and everyone thought it was because the Research Institute was busy recently. This day, the southern border base received news that several nests had appeared on the border of the southern border, and Shangwan Ling decided to lead a team out of the southern border to destroy the nests. The news spread throughout the southern border. Are you sure? Shangwan Ling leads the team personally. Bai Anguo repeatedly confirmed to the people below. The reply from the people below: definitely, we will leave in 3 days. Bai Anguo laughed until his face was wrinkled. Ha ha ha, okay, Shangwan Ling, even if you come back with your life, you will no longer be the king of the southern border. The man below showed embarrassment. It's just that I'm afraid that Mu Zicheng will also go with Shangwan Ling, so it won't be easy. Bai Anguo snorted coldly. He won't go. He can't leave this base. Bai Anguo's eyes were gloomy. After Shang Guanling solved it, Mu Zicheng was the second person to be dealt with. Wei Ran was surprised when he heard the news that Shang Guanling was going to lead the team himself on the surface. He is still the leader here. Now that he leaves, Bai Anguo is going to take the lead. Bai Anguo has also been very quiet for a while, and no longer send people over to invite Mu Zicheng. Of course Wei Ran didn't think he would settle down. It was probably because he was waiting for an opportunity. Mu Zicheng nodded with a cold expression on the corner of his mouth. What I want is for him to take the lead. Although Mu Zi and Shang Guanling both knew what Bai Anguo was thinking, after all, he was the core figure in the southern border base and had his own troops. Cutting the weeds and eradicating the roots can only make him float his head first. Jiang Ninfeng couldn't help asking Mu Zicheng during dinner tonight, Brother Cheng, is the Weapons Research Institute so busy? Jiang Nanfeng did not refute as usual this time, but kept silent. Wei Ran sensed something wrong with Jiang Nanfeng and was just about to ask him something. At this time there was the sound of a car stopping outside. Then Gu Ming came in, followed by a petite girl. Qing Qi An Qian. Hi everyone, I'm Gu Ming's girlfriend Qian Qian Qian. Wei Ran was startled. What's going on? Not only her but everyone else was shocked and couldn't help but look at Jiang Nanfeng. Jiang Nanfeng stood up and looked at Gu Ming with a gloomy face. What's going on? Gu Ming was silent. He calmly continued to ask, the scent I smelled on you is hers. Gu Ming slightly moving his eyes, he seemed to think about it for a while, and then nodded slightly. Suddenly, Jiang Nanfeng was about to throw a fist towards Gu Ming, but Gu Ming followed him and held him tightly. Jiang Nanfeng stared at him with red eyes. After a while he lowered his eyes to glance at the wrist that Gu Ming was holding onto him, and then slammed Gu Ming's hand away. Chen Wei and Su Yi came between Gu Ming and Jiang Nanfeng. Chen Wei asked puzzledly, Gu Ming, what's the matter with you? He had always known that Gu Ming had that kind of thought for Jiang Nanfeng, but Jiang Nanfeng, a heartless fool, hadn't noticed it for so many years. Now that the two of them have finally managed to get ahead, what is the cause of this trouble? Mu Zicheng stood up slowly and pushed Wei Ran back to her chair. You finished the meal, and so are the green vegetables then. His eyes dimmed, and he said to Gu Ming in a slightly cold voice, you follow me to the study. After finishing speaking, he didn't care whether Gu Ming should respond or not, and walked up the stairs with his long legs. Brother Gu Ming, I. Qingqian Qian had only finished speaking halfway, but Gu Ming immediately followed behind Mu Zicheng. She was the only one left to face the room. Wei Ran picked up the bowls and chopsticks again, and called out without raising her head, Xiao Bai, drive the irrelevant people out of the door. Xiao Bai was having fun in the backyard, and immediately returned to the living room when he heard the call, and kissed Qingqian Qian. Roar. Qingqian Qian shuddered as soon as he saw the snow lion, and Xiao Bai roared again, almost staggering and running towards the door. Jiang Nanfeng went upstairs and returned to his room. Nanfeng Su Yi called out a few times, and the more he called Jiang Nanfeng, the more he walked away. Yan Ying was stunned. What's going on? 20 minutes later. Mu Zicheng got down, followed by Gu Ming. Call her in. After Qingqian Qian came in, she still didn't dare to enter the living room and kept shrinking behind the hallway, only showing her head. Because Xiao Bai was lying lazily in the middle of the living room, she wanted to go to Gu Ming's side, but as soon as she made any movement, Xiao Bai stood up and growled at her. Mu Zicheng sat in the main seat on the sofa, looking serious and solemn. From now on you go live in the villa next door. Brother Cheng. Mu Zicheng stopped their voices with a wave of his hand. A flash of success flashed across Qingqian Qian's eyes, but there was still a simple smile on his face. Thank you, Mr. Mu. Gu Ming took Qingqian Qian to the villa next door. She stayed there as soon as she walked in. Not to mention that there is no luxury and grandeur of the main villa at all, there is only dust and cobwebs, and there is not even a decent piece of furniture. Brother Ming, how do you live here? Clean it up yourself. Ming turned around and was about to leave, but was held back by Qian. Didn't you tell me that I want to live with you? She pulled down her collar without any trace, revealing the deep hook line. Ming still said the most serious words with a cold expression. Brother Chang said that you must test whether you are a qualified woman before you can go to the villa over there. Qian was stunned. What is a qualified woman? The first test is cleaning. Haha, the test of Chief Mu is really unique. Chapter 107. As soon as Ming returned to the main villa, his face, which had always been expressionless, showed agitation. He obviously walked up the stairs in a hurry and quickly walked to Jiang Yanfeng's room and pushed him away. It was pitch black inside. He turned on the light and there was no one there. Ming's heart sank suddenly. When he returned to his room and smashed himself on the bed, which was completely weak, there was another cry of pain. Ming, are you trying to smash me to death? Ming hurriedly stood up and lifted the quilt, only to see Jiang Nanfeng, who he thought was hiding, appeared on his bed. This time the chaotic heart completely returned to its original position. I thought. Why? You thought I'd repented, but you thought it was a good idea. Jiang Nanfeng then put on a fierce face. I ask you, have you hugged her? Ming shook his head quickly. No. Then why do you have her scent on you? When she passed by that time, she bumped into me. Didn't push away. Pushed. She said it was your girlfriend. I didn't. He promised and didn't admit it, just now. Jiang Nanfeng's expression softened. You're breaking out in cold sweat. Are you that scared? Didn't you give me the Morse code when you were in the living room? Ming honestly expressed his true thoughts. I'm afraid you forgot how to unlock the code. Get out. Originally, Jiang Nanfeng's temperament really wanted to fight him to the death, but when Ming held his wrist and typed a series of passwords with his thumb in the hidden place, he calmed down his anger instantly. Zicheng later told them that Ming was on a mission, and that the woman cast an illusion on Ming. Fortunately, Wei Ran cast a forbidden spell on all of them before, so Ming was not affected. After calming down, he thought that if it was true just now. He looked at Ming in the bathroom, feeling a little scared in his heart. Wei Ran wiped her slightly damp hair from the shower. Brother, since Ming is not affected, how did you find her? Muzi took over the towel in her hand and wiped it carefully. Gao Ding reported that he saw Bai Anguo meeting a woman in private. A few times. He felt suspicious and told Ming. Because he was afraid of finding out, Gao Ding didn't take pictures at that time, so I went to explore Gao Ding's previous memories. Afterwards, when Mu Zicheng saw King Qian, she already knew her plan clearly. Psychedelic art will still work for people with a strong will, and special medicine can be added to food and drink. Wei Ran remembered that time when she went to the research institute. She took out the tea for Ming from the equipment bag, and was caught the data warning sound attracted attention and placed it on the table next to her. When she turned around again, Qian was standing behind her. Luckily she cast the spell early. Wei Ran paused, raised her face, and blinked her eyes. So you just plan. Mu Zicheng casually threw the towel aside. She's from Duzhong base. Wei Ran was startled. Then Mu Zicheng calmly said something even more shocking. There is a woman named Qian in the base, but she doesn't have psychedelic powers in her abilities. Bai Anguo inserted people from the Duzhong base and replaced them with the disguise technique. She approached the research. Therefore, approaching Ming is to find the weapon arsenal. This kind of disguise technique is a kind of manual skill, which can be done without supernatural powers. As long as the skill is superb, it can be faked. Wei Ran lowered her eyes and thought he does this kind of thing without anyone noticing, and he can only operate from the inside. Could it be that he secretly transported people from the underground passage? Mu Zicheng's eyes were cold, slow, and calm. Say, it is true that he transported people from the underground passage. He used to be the head of the military region and the core leader, so he can pass through freely. get rid of it, and asked Gu Ming to add an invisible laser ray weapon to the underground passage. Mu Zicheng's face was covered with coldness. Whether Bai Anguo was manipulated by Cheng Shexian or betrayed by himself, when he made a move he couldn't stay. The next day, Qin Qian walked out of the villa next door with 2 dark circles under her eyes. She cleaned all night last night, but only half of the cleaning didn't arrive. In the second half of the night she really couldn't do it, and she just wanted to sleep. As a result, I searched several rooms but failed to find a bed. In the end, I only found a 1.5-meter long folding bed and a dusty blanket in the basement. But she was too tired to take care of anything, and fell asleep. It forced me to wake up again early in the morning. Not far away, she saw that Gu Ming was about to get in the car to go to the research institute, and hurriedly shouted, "Brother Gu Ming, wait for me." At this moment, Wei Ran came out with a cold face. "Clean up the villa over there. Is it clean?" "Wait for me." Qian watched Gu Ming's car drive away, and responded casually to Wei Ran, "It's cleaned up. It's cleaned up." After finishing speaking, Zhu Kankan chased after Gu Ming and the car went. But she didn't catch up in the end, and her legs trembled when she arrived at the research institute after walking for an hour. When she went to the research institute, before she had time to talk to Gu Ming, she couldn't find him. At noon, Lai Ningxia came to her side. "I heard from Gu Ming that you are now undergoing a severe test by members of the Mu Zicheng family. How about I let you rest for a few days, you take the test well, and when you succeed, I will transfer you to the weapon production side." Originally, Gu Ming's indifference made her wonder if psychedelic techniques had no effect on Gu Ming, but when Li Ningxia said this, she completely dismissed the idea. She pretended to be shy. "No, I can take care of both." But Lai Ningxia said forcefully, "Okay, don't talk about it, it's decided like this." Then she was immediately driven back to Yiki Island by Li Ningxia. When she returned, Wei Ran called her to the main villa again. Qin Qian felt happy. "Could it be that seeing my hard work last night? Let me enter the main villa." As soon as she entered, she saw Wei Ran and Yan Yang sitting on the sofa, and she was sitting opposite Wei Ran. Wei Ran smiled at Qin Qian. "Did you clean up late last night?" No, Qin Qian dared not tell the truth. "I just went to see it. She looks like a hard-working woman." Qin Qian shouted excitedly and just thought of it, and then heard Wei Ran say, "But it's a pity you failed." Choking on Qin Qian's throat, he couldn't spit it out or swallow it. It took a while to ask why. Yan Yang took out the tablet and drew out pictures, showing Qin Qian one by one. That was the picture of the villa last night. Some of them had been cleaned up and the trash hadn't been thrown out yet, some had only been cleaned up halfway, and some hadn't been cleaned yet. Yan Yang pointed to the pictures and said, "Seriously, I asked you this morning if you finished cleaning. You replied that you have finished cleaning. Our family values women's 3 obediences and 4 virtues, so we will never want a person who lies to the family members." Qin Qian thought in her heart, cursing, "What kind of rotten family is this? Feudal system." But he pleaded immediately on his mouth, and the tears in his eyes fell as soon as he said it, without staying for a moment. "Is there still a chance to make amends? I'm just too tired. I promise that this kind of thing will never happen again. I really like Brother Gu Ming. I can do whatever I want." Wei Ran frowned. "Really willing to do anything?" "Impossible," Yan Yang strongly objected. "Sakura, I think I can give her another chance." "Xiao Ran, I cleaned the entire villa area with great care. She only has 1 villa now. Is this fair?" Qin Qian opened her eyes wide. "The entire villa area. Or else, let her clean up everything in Yehi Island, except the main villa." Qin Qian's eyes widened this time. The whole Yi Island. Chapter 108. Mu Zicheng did it deliberately. In the past few days, everyone in the base has been discussing who will manage the affairs of the base during Sheng Wanling's absence. Bai Anguo and the leaders of the former counties and districts below all asked about Sheng Wanling's tone, and even wanted to hint that Shang Wanling would let Bai Anguo take over temporarily, but Shang Wanling still did not let go. Until Shang Wanling set off with part of the elite team to destroy the nest and leave the southern border base. A circular was sent to every corner of the southern border base at the same time, so that everyone knew clearly. But this announcement made Bai Anguo fly into a rage. Because this document was issued by Shang Wanling personally. The front line is urgent, and I must lead the team to the front line. After I leave the base, all affairs in the base will be handled by Mu Zicheng, who will temporarily serve as the base leader. There is also Shang Guanling's autograph at the bottom to show the authenticity. Bai Anguo tore the announcement into pieces angrily. I thought that after Shang Guanling left, even if the rights were not left to him, they would be left to the county leaders who followed him before. Who knows, Shang Guanling turned around and gave Mu Zicheng directly. The guard said Shang Guanling deliberately issued the notice after he left, just to make things happen. Bai Anguo's face was livid. He's not the only one who has the final say on this southern border base. Even if it's announced, it's still the same thing whether you recognize it or not. Knock knock. There was a slightly anxious knock on the door. Bai Anguo responded impatiently, "Come in." After the door opened, a young soldier walked in, but his tone was different from that of ordinary soldiers. Bai Lao, a few people have arrived in the underground passage. Please Bai Lao to go through. Bai Lao, what is the rush? I need to report to the leader, please wait a moment. Chen Wei smiled and stopped the rushing Bai Anguo in front of the office. Bai Anguo was stimulated by the word leader again, and became furious. What leader? You are the leader sitting in it? Come on, hold him down for me. I want to see who has the final say in this base. Bai Anguo brought 5 or 6 people, and immediately wanted to make a move, but Chen Wei summoned a gust of wind to blow them all, and they couldn't get close to Chen Wei's body. Chen Wei was still amiable and kind to persuade in any case. The person sitting inside is the highest-ranking leader of the southern border base, there is no doubt about it. Otherwise, I'm afraid that I'll keep your important matters out of the door. Do you think that's the reason? Bai Anguo's face was so dark that a bottle of ink could drip out. Just now he was so angry that he was completely irrational, and for a moment he forgot that Mu Zicheng was surrounded by people with unpredictable supernatural powers, so he couldn't take any advantage by doing it. Chapter 109. Wei Ran's culinary skills. Bai Anguo's work in the underground passage, and the rest of the old leaders also knew about it one after another. Mu Zicheng's ruthlessness made them afraid when they were ready to move. For a while, it also temporarily stopped. Wei Ran, that one is going to be turned over, it's almost burnt. How about I turn it over for you? Chen Wei hastily called Wei Ran, who was picking up something on the other side. No, I have to do it myself. She hurried back and turned the tomahawk steak in the pan to the other side. It's okay, there's still time. Chen Wei also secretly breathed a sigh of relief. Xiao Bai had already gnawed off several pieces of steak, all of which were charred and blackened. At this moment he couldn't take it anymore, and he didn't know where to hide. Okay, now you can put some rosemary. No, put a little, don't put a whole pot. Oh, what should I do? After she finally fried it, it was already 2 hours later. When it was almost time, Mu Zicheng appeared in the living room. The current Mu Zicheng is simply too lazy to drive, and teleports wherever he wants to go. Brother. Wei Ran Qingyu walked quickly towards Mu Zicheng, jumped into his arms and hugged his waist. Brother, I made you delicious food. Oh, Mu Zicheng lowered his eyes, raised his eyebrows, and joked with the corners of his usually indifferent mouth. What day is it today? Wei Ran actually cooks. Hearing this, Wei Ran became unhappy and looked at him sideways. I'm going to dump it. As he said that, he was about to run over, but Mu Zicheng, who was full of tenderness, pulled him back and coaxed him. That's not okay. The dishes made by Ran can only enter my stomach in the end. Wei Ran being teased by him, she lightly hammered his hard chest coquettishly. Brother, it's so annoying after the... Others came back one after another. They began to eat. Zicheng was sitting in the front seat, thinking about which dish Wei Ran cooked. I saw her bring a plate of exquisite tomahawk steak from the kitchen and put it on the dining table. It still looks pretty good, at least the color and aroma are still there. Wei Ran turned to Zicheng with a little pride on his face and said, "Brother, Chen Wei said this is called tomahawk steak. I think I did a good job, right the corners of." Zicheng's mouth rose indeed. Jiangnan Feng and the others looked at Chen Wei at the same time. All of them had terrified expressions on their faces. Chen Wei had an expression of "Brother Chen, take care." At the end of the day, everyone swiped and looked at Zicheng again. I really can't blame them for this. It's because Wei Ran has tried cooking before, cooking good food into lumps of half-baked and unknown objects. Only Zicheng could eat it without changing his face, and everyone else stayed away. Everyone stared nervously. Zicheng cut a piece of meat on the plate and put it in his mouth, chewing carefully. It seemed that he was unwilling to part with the delicious food in his mouth and chewed it for a while longer than usual before swallowing it slowly. Wei Ran looked at Zicheng expectantly and asked, "Brother, how is it?" Zicheng continued to cut another piece of steak and put it into his mouth, meeting her expectant eyes. The corners of his mouth softened. "I think it's better than beef steak. Chen Wei's cooking is even more delicious. Ran is awesome." This sentence made Wei Ran's eyes light up immediately. "Really? Let me try." "That won't work, it's all mine, and you can't steal mine." Zicheng was rarely willing to share a bite with Wei Ran, and as if afraid of being eaten by her, he finished it in a few bites very quickly. Wei Ran frowned, confident, "Then I will cook for you next time." The others were surprised to see that there was only a bone left besides some vegetables on the plate. Chen Wei could only get up secretly and go to the kitchen to squeeze a glass of ice juice and put it quietly in Zicheng's hand. In the end, for dinner, Zicheng didn't eat much else, so he drank the glass of juice squeezed by Chen Wei and countless glasses of water. "Brother, why have you been drinking water?" "Well, I'm busy today, so I didn't drink much water." Chen Wei sighed aside. "Can I not drink water?" Not to mention that the meat was too thick to chew. She added salt several times because she was afraid that it would lose its taste. Ever since Qin Qian entered Ye Highland, in order to get into the main villa as soon as possible, it was every day. They are all cleaning and eating dry food. This happened because she was really hungry the next night, so she went to ask Gu Ming what she wanted to eat, but Gu Ming brought her a bag of steamed buns and bread for everything, and only 2 small bottles of water. Qin Qian held back her anger and tried to maintain a pitiful appearance. "Brother Gu Ming, is there nothing else?" Gu Ming said blankly. "Brother Cheng said that a qualified woman should not only work hard, but also be hardworking and thrifty." In this way, Qin Qian kept cleaning in Ye Highland every day, and was forced to live in the empty villa for several days after sweeping at sunrise and returning at sunset. Half a steamed bun was choked to death again. She drank a few sips of water before swallowing the steamed bun stuck in her throat, and coughed until she was choked by the water. After finally taking a breath, she gritted her teeth and muttered to herself in embarrassment. Finally, one of them was delusional, but he was still an incomprehensible fool. "Just wait. One day you will fall into my hands." Then she got up and looked up. I saw someone discussing something vaguely in the darkness in the distance outside the glass window. She has been guarding Xiaobai these days, so she can't enter the main villa at all. Seeing this movement at this time, I felt that I had expected it, so I hurried downstairs and approached quietly to see that it was Wei Ran and Yan Yang who were talking. "Xiao Ran, I heard that there is movement from Bai Angguo." "Well, they said they noticed a few abnormalities and they will be arrested and tortured tomorrow morning before they notice." "That's a good torture." "That's right, let's ask slowly after removing hands and feet." Qin Qian's heart skipped a beat. "Who is it?" "No, you have to notify over there." Yan Yang glanced back, looked at Wei Ran and nodded. Wei Ran sneered. Qin Qian hadn't been out of Summer Island these days and she didn't know anything about the situation outside. She waited until midnight to see that the main villa was completely dark and left Summer Island immediately. After she left Ye Island completely, the plants on the border of Yehi Island suddenly moved. She avoided the plants and came to a very remote place surrounded by cement. Take out a small black object from a small pocket in the innermost part of the clothes. She pressed a key on it, and the black part glowed red. About 20 minutes later, a young man came out to meet her. Is it accurate? I rushed over as soon as I heard it. It was Wei Ran who said it herself. She is Mu Ziking's closest bedside person. It can't be wrong. Okay, I'll tell the others now, let them be careful. Mu Qian said a few more words to the young man, and then dispersed. And after Mu Qian left, no one noticed that there was a fleeting pinch of white near where she was standing before. Chapter 110. Like a little wife walking around, Wei Ran is nestled in Mu Ziking's office today to accompany him. Knock, knock, knock. Several knocks on the door. After getting Mu Ziking's permission, it was Su Yi and Yan Yang who pushed the door in. Brother Cheng, I followed the man Qian met last night. It seems that he should be a contact line Cheng Shuxian left in the southern base. Only he can connect with people who sneaked into the southern base. He is usually very be careful. Sneaking into Bai Angguo's place is also very hidden, just a little driver underneath. Yan Yang continued to say after Su Yi's words. Besides, there were no plants around the place where they met last night. They must have kept away from me to avoid me. I thought it was a place like this to meet. But now I have brought out a contact person, and I have let the plant closely monitor the exposed person. Wei Ran suddenly realized no wonder Xiao Yang asked the plant to search and couldn't find anything. Because the southern border has a large population and a large place, there were not many clues before, but it took a lot of time to search for plants alone. So Wei Ran and Yan Yang deliberately said those few words to Qin Qian last night in order to lure other people out. After hearing what Su Yi and Yan Yang said, Mu Ziking nodded. Did you go to Bai Angguo to arrest people this morning? Su Yi replied, go. As expected, Bai Angguo won't let you arrest, so we agreed to retreat. As the saying goes, you have to do a full set of acting to catch people, but completely avoided the people in the Zhujiang base. Just pointed out a few people at any time and said to catch them. A bit of sarcasm flashed across Mu Ziking's eyes and the corner of his mouth was cold. Until the people in Zhujiang base are not completely found out, just stay still and keep monitoring. A little more time to think about how to toss. Su Yi and Yan nodded in response. At this time, Yan Yang thought that there was another one in Yehi Island, so she asked, is the one in the house going to be thrown out? Wei Ran smiled. I haven't played enough. If you provoke Gu Ming, you will be skinned if you don't die. Wei Ran went into the secret realm and picked a bunch of lilies that were about to bloom and took out a vase to put it in and placed it on Mu Ziking's table. Brother, your office is too simple. Let me put something for you. Wei Ran fiddled with the large bouquet of lilies in her hand and asked, Brother, don't these flowers look good? Mu Ziking looked up and saw through the lilies. Wei Ran, who was behind, had a slight smile on her lips. It looks good. She didn't realize that Mu Ziking answered the wrong question. I found a hot spring in the secret realm a few days ago. It seems to be effective for healing. I have a bruise that was hit by a table. After soaking in the hot spring, it recovered. But I don't know the scope of the treatment. How big is it? So it depends on your time. Come with me to catch a big animal to try the curative effect. The hot spring is at the top of a mountain. Do you want to build a log cabin next to the hot spring? This way we usually have a place when we go and rest. Wei Ran kept muttering, but Mu Ziking didn't respond, so she stopped fiddling with lilies and looked up at him. I saw Mu Ziking holding his temple lazily with his clear and clean hands, and chasing her with joy in his eyes and eyebrows. What's wrong? Am I dirty somewhere? Wei Ran thought he had something on him. She twisted her body, looked down and found nothing. Mu Ziking shook his head lightly. She touched her face in a daze, and stared at Mu Zicheng blankly with her clear and pure eyes. So there is something on my face. Mu Zicheng nodded slightly, pretending to be serious. She took out a tissue and wiped it. Is it clean? No. Mu Zicheng waved to her. Come here, I'll tell you. Wei Ran crossed the desk in confusion. As soon as he walked to his side, Mu Zicheng grabbed her soft little hands and pulled her into his warm chest with a little force, and fell down on his long tight legs. Oh, Wei Ran exclaimed. Brother lied to me. It's necrotic. Mu Zicheng chuckled a few times. His Adam's apple slid up and down sexily, and his hard and reliable chest trembled slightly. Do you know what the whispering you just said was like? She raised her fair and delicate face and shook her head in confusion. He slightly lowered his head and pressed it against Wei Ran's ear. It's like a delicate little wife muttering about her husband's daily life. Wei Ran blushed suddenly. I'm not. He buried his face, which was flushed as if it was about to bleed, into the crook of his neck, refusing to look up. Although he would always call his favorite name when he was having sex, but he never talked about it in normal times. Mu Zicheng teased her. It's not what? It's not my wife, or am I not your husband? Wei Ran buried herself in his neck so as not to be fooled by him, and she let out a soft and weak voice. Brother, you are so mean. The answer is the same. Mu Zicheng chuckled, kissed her flushed cheeks, and stroked her seaweed-like hair. A very tender sentence. I love you, Wei Ran. Wei Ran looked up at him blankly. She always regrets her ignorance in her previous life, so she often expresses her affection to Mu Zicheng. But Mu Zicheng seldom talked about his love, no matter whether it was the unrequited love in the previous life, or the hard-won, honest love between the two in this life after 2 lifetimes. He's a real man of action. The number of times he uttered them is extremely rare. But every time he said it, Wei Ran's heart would be numb with a strong and deep love. Let her be demonic, let her be willing to sink into madness. She reached out to caress his side face and murmured in response. Wei Ran only wants Mu Zicheng, and I will kill anyone who dares to snatch you away. Mu Zicheng's dark eyes danced hotly, grabbing her tender lips and kissing her fiercely. Jiang Ninfeng picked up a set of mahjong playing cards at the market. I also bought Wei Ran and Yan Yang the ancient tomb games they like to play, and connected them to the TV to play. Wei Ran's eyes lit up. Nanfeng, you are amazing, you can always find these fun. Yan Yang even gave a thumbs up and praised highly. Both Wei Ran and Yan Yang are fans of ancient tomb exploration games, but unfortunately, when she was shopping for supplies, she never expected that she would be able to play games with such leisure as today. Jiang Nanfeng was overjoyed. Of course I don't even look at who I am. Su Yui over there had already shuffled the cards and placed them on the table. How is it? Is it the old rules? The poker cards that were picked up last time, because they often play cards, have been played by them so much that some of them are rotten. They were also bored for a while. Chen Wei raised his hand and patted the table. It is necessary, this is exciting. Then he pointed at Jiang Nanfeng and Gu Ming. These two people can't sit together, let me separate. Jiang Nanfeng snorted. Who is afraid of whom after? Chen Wei, Gu Ming, Jiang Nanfeng, and Su Yi came to power. The 4 families began to fall in love with each other. Chapter 111. Getting to know Wei Ran again. Wei Ran often goes to Mu Zicheng's office to accompany him, and sometimes when Mu Zicheng is busy, he just reads or plays games by himself. News came from Liningxia today, saying that the coverage rate of the superintelligence laboratory has reached 100%, and the test will be carried out today. Mu Zicheng brought Wei Ran to the weapons laboratory. Liningxia was already used to Mu Zicheng's sudden appearance, but it was the first time he appeared with Wei Ran, and she was a little surprised. At this time, Gu Ming's voice came from the communication device. I've arrived at the location now, but I won't send any information to the laboratory after waiting for the time and location of the type of weapon I fired. Li Ningxia picked up the communication device and replied, "Got it." Yesterday, Zicheng let Wei Ran pulled out a different bomb launch vehicle from the space. This car is a big guy, 30 meters long, because it carries not only missiles but also rocket launchers. In addition, its excellent off-road performance allows it to walk on the ground in various road conditions under the overload capacity. In order to simulate reality, Zicheng asked Gu Ming to use weapons to attack the southern border according to the raid situation, so as to test the real response of the superintelligence laboratory. But Li Ningxia didn't know what weapon Gu Ming was using. Zicheng and Wei Ran looked at the giant virtual screen above and observed what happened next. After 10 minutes. Beep beep ... The connection alarm sounds. A red dot at a certain position flashed on the screen again. A mechanical female voice spoke. 10 kilometers away, there is a missile flying towards the base. The opponent's target has locked on the base. Now start the defensive interception procedure. The defense system is ready to appear on the virtual screen. Then it automatically launched to intercept the missile sent by Gu Ming 5 kilometers away. Then it exploded in the air. The mechanical female voice reported the result: the missile has been intercepted, and the danger has been eliminated. When they first heard that it was a missile, the people in the laboratory, including Li Ningxia, were very nervous. Of course, it's not that I don't have confidence in what I have developed. But I have never seen it before, and it was tested with missiles. You must know that a missile is not only expensive but also its destructive power is too terrifying. If the superintelligence laboratory fails to stop it, it will be enough to raise the entire southern border base to the ground. Li Ningxia felt that Zicheng was a little lacking in consideration. She looked at Zicheng with a serious face. "Mr. Mu, is this too risky? If the missiles cannot be stopped, the consequences will be disastrous." Zicheng gave Li Ningxia a cold look, still cold. "I'm here, so there's no such possibility." But Li Ningxia wanted to say something but was cut off by Wei Ran. "Professor Li, since you cooperated with my brother, you should know that he is not a person who likes to show off. He originally wanted to use rocket launchers, but he was afraid of scaring you, so he changed to missiles in the end. If you change the following weapons, then today's test will be meaningless. I believe that Professor Li also understands this truth." Wei Ran's words made Li Ningxia feel a little ashamed. Since it is said that it is a superintelligent laboratory, it can only be dealt with the most powerful weapons to try out its capabilities. If others attack in the future, who guarantees that there will be no missiles? Li Ningxia frowned. "I'm overthinking." Wei Ran pursed her lips and chuckled. "It's rare for Professor Li to be willing to speak out. I hope he will continue to do so in the future and cooperate happily." In fact, this is the second time Li Ningxia has seen Wei Ran. The first time, he thought she was just a little girl with bright eyes and bright teeth. But now she has a new understanding of Wei Ran. The next step is the counterattack operation, locking the attack target on a distant hill with no one and launching it with precision strikes. After a series of operations are completely successful, Li Ningxia made a conclusion. Now, the laboratory has been covered, and under the debugging of Gu Ming, who is proficient in weapons, he has successfully connected to deal with weapons of various dangerous levels, and the tests have been successful just now. Now the southern border is equivalent to an iron wall. From now on, someone will attack, or if outsiders want to intrude abnormally, they will be identified one by one and corresponding to different countermeasures. Only after the base security is completely guaranteed can the base development continue. Zicheng nodded and said coldly, "Set up and deal with those who trespassed on the base." Li Ningxia was surprised. "Don't you need to keep alive to ask why you came here?" Zicheng was indifferent, but there was a slight glint in his eyes. "No need." Li Ningxia understood immediately. Only absolute deterrence can prevent the people in Zicheng base from acting rashly. She also thought that Qin Qian hadn't heard from Qin Qian since she cooperated with Gu Ming in acting last time, so she asked, "How is the girl who sneaked into the research institute before?" Wei Ran flashed past yesterday's scene. Qiang Qian managed to clean the rest of the villas, and then Gu Ming drove her up to the back mountain and said tomorrow that he had to work hard on the road. The back mountain is very wild and there are many mosquitoes and poisonous ants. It is estimated that it will be uncertain what it will look like. She laughed a few times. It's pretty good. I'm cultivating my character. Qiang Qian is still in summer. Island hasn't he been found? We have a great chance of winning. Our leader said that we will definitely help Bai Lao to become the top leader of the southern border base. The person who responded was the person who met Qiang Qian that night. At this point they are talking in the car. Bai Anguo raised his hand and pressed his aching silver temple hair, and said, "Well, Xiao Zhang, tell her to hurry up and get authorized to enter the arsenal as soon as possible." Apart from Shengwan Ling, he has the most manpower in the southern border base after all. He was not a vegetarian when he fought the war, and he was also an outstanding county official. It's just that when he got to a high position in the peaceful era and gained power, he was gradually infected to the bottom and could never go back. Boom! An extremely loud explosion sounded suddenly. The explosion made the moving car come to a sudden stop. Bai Anguo was astonished. What's going on? Xiao Zhang hurriedly got out of the car to check, and the air in the distance was filled with thick smog after the explosion. Xiao Zhang looked confusedly at Bai Anguo, who had also got out of the car. It seems that something exploded in the air. Bai Anguo felt that the layers of smoke were somewhat familiar. After a while, everything seemed to be calm again. Bai Anguo just wanted to get in the car. Whoosh! 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 Something seems to be coming. He looked up at the clear blue sky. Suddenly, several laser cannons with light blue light flew over his head at a high speed, landed on the top of a distant mountain, and collapsed half of the mountain in an instant. These shells were obviously fired from the southern border base. Bai Anguo finally remembered the familiarity of those smokes. This is the scene after the missile explosion that will be seen in every county military exercise before the end of the world. It's normal to have missile bases, but this type of laser cannon weapon has never been seen in the southern border base. He was shocked. Where did these weapons come from?